is also the selective nature. Is also the selective URA uses in the collection of taxes. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a tactful way of people evading taxes. I don't know whether it has been a recent kind of arrangement. A tactful way of the issue of tax waivers to foreigners. I have come to prove taxes that there are many Ugandans who are not paying taxes. Kind of arrangement. They connive with the foreigners to start enterprises. The face is either an Indian or a Chinese when the actual project belongs to a Ugandan. Because we favor these foreigners that we should waive off the taxes for them, sometimes tax holidays. So this leads to a lot of loss of revenue. But sometimes situations where we could raise a lot of revenue, we leave it, we go to people who can pay less taxes. So this brings about a low revenue mobilization. Mr. Speaker, sir, finally is the issue of assessment. There has been a rampant complaint from taxpayers that sometimes when you look at the assessment of URA, two people who are selling the same item may be assessed differently. One is assessed at a cheaper rate, the other one is assessed at a higher rate. This also breeds resistance, and also at the same time, it affects revenue mobilization. So therefore, on these two areas, I want to support the committee and encourage that these selective approaches should be stopped. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Paparu.
Thank you, Right Honorable
But
Speaker.
I've already picked the people to speak. I'm stopping there, then on the next report, I pick others.
Thank you. Yeah. I also want to thank the committee for the report. Right Honorable Speaker, there's an observation on low involvement of local governments in tax assessment. This is very key. Right Honorable Speaker, in this House, we have ever reported the conflicts between URA and the taxpayers. And this comes about because of the limited involvement of the local leaders and also limited tax education. The assessments at times are not from informed point of view because the local leaders or the local governments are not involved. So when the assessments are not satisfactory to the taxpayer, payment becomes a problem. And this leads to the observation, they have said that the disputes among the taxpayers and URA. These disputes are so much because the way URA handles their disputes, they are so strict, and because the local leaders are not involved, people are not satisfied with the assessments, you find payment of taxes becomes a problem. And that's why we see a rift, especially in West Nile. You see URA staffs always having problems or conflicts with the business people locally, and this has at times contributed to loss of lives, conflicts, and it reduces revenue base. So I want to uphold the recommendation from the committee that let local leaders be involved and let tax education be enhanced so that there's a good relationship between URA and the community. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Christian. Honorable colleagues, I've already picked the people to speak. Yes. Honorable Ri, Honorable Christian, Honorable Dakas, Honorable Kateshumba, Honorable Ababiko.
Right Honorable Speaker, in the report, it has still come out that we have failed to raise revenues from some unprocessed minerals. And one of these minerals is gold. But Right Honorable Speaker, this is an issue that has the Natural Resources Committee, Natural Resources Committee, come out has always been battling with. We have failed to raise revenues together with some other committees here. From Right Honorable Speaker, I feel minerals we should do and find a way of writing off this issue. Because we cannot keep complaining about the failure of Uganda to earn from the unprocessed has always been minerals. And right, Honorable Speaker, when you look at areas, especially areas next to my place in Chiboga, routes that go to the mining areas are really in a sorry state. Sometimes we are like, yes, we are advocating that the roads be constructed, but we are sealed off. We cannot critically say that this is the money that is got from here, and then we advocate for at least contribution to road maintenance. So, right, Honorable Speaker, it is also worrying us that if the unprocessed minerals have been stopped, the exportation of these minerals has been stopped. What is happening to the minerals right now? We are hearing, we have rumors that there is an institution now buying the unprocessed minerals, and then the miners are earning, but at the same time no revenue is subscribed to our treasury, to the minerals right now. Honorable Speaker, we need now the line minister to update us on the status of the unprocessed minerals whose exportation was halted, and how the miners are gaining out of this, and who is buying it, and how is the National Treasury gaining anything from this. Right, Honorable Speaker, this is an issue that we need to really put at hold, because we have raised it on a number of instances. I thank you, right, need now.
Thank you, Honorable Guzuri.
Update us on the status of the...
Mr. Speaker, the issue of low tax revenue should concern all of us, because the services we depend on must come from our taxes. But there's no way people can pay tax if the principle of tax benefit is not adhered to. When people pay taxes, they expect that certain services would be delivered to them, and that will be a motivation for paying more tax. What we are seeing in this country is much of the tax revenue gets stolen, and therefore there is low tax morale. People don't want to pay tax because they know at the end of the day the revenue will not come back to them in form of tax benefits. Two, we cannot continue to point fingers at URA when there are policy issues that must be addressed. For example, this country has signed so many double tax agreements with the other nations. And these double tax agreements stipulate the applicable tax rate to any beneficiary between these two countries or among these countries. Tax revenue, and those who are always doing what we call treaty shopping, knowing where the opportunities are, will take advantage of that, and they will do it legally by applying aggressive tax planning. And as a result, we will be losing tax. Therefore, I want to request you, Mr. Speaker, that you direct the Minister of Finance or the Minister of Foreign Affairs to bring to this House all the tax agreements the government of Uganda has signed with other governments for our review, so that we can explore the opportunities and loopholes. Senegal did that. They reviewed their tax, double tax agreements, and they were able to mobilize over $300 million. An opportunity we have lost over time. Mr. Speaker, I have also noticed that Uganda continues to lose tax revenue through illicit financial flows. And again, these illicit financial flows are enabled. And for us to deal with that, we must also deal with the gaps in our tax laws that facilitate these illicit financial flows. It is said right now Africa loses annually over 88 million. And how much of this do you think occurs in this country? We must be able to examine the laws. Lastly, recently, the Ministry of Finance released a report of tax expenditure report of last financial year, and it is said government foregoes 2.9 trillion, for example, in tax expenditure. That is revenue foregone when exemptions are given out, when tax waivers are given to supposed investors, without qualifying whether there are benefits coming from those tax expenditures. For example, we have seen supermarkets close, big multinational companies in this country close after exploiting the tax benefits. So it's time this government reviews and qualifies every decision they make on tax exemptions, tax expenditures, so that knowing where the benefits of our policies can promote more revenue collections. We are advocates for improved revenue collections, and that requires us to take measures. And I would want to invite the other committees of Parliament, especially Finance, to critically examine the report of the Committee on Public Accounts, so that we can be able to tap into some of the proposals they are making and resolve these issues at hand. I thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Agnes Apea.
That you direct the Minister of Finance or the Minister of Foreign Affairs to bring to this House all the tax agreements the government of
that highlighted the tax to GDP ratio at 11% as compared to 18% of
Uganda has signed with other governments for our review, so that we can explore the opportunities and loopholes. Senegal did that. They reviewed their tax, double tax agreements, than the
domestic revenue mobilization strategy 2020
able to mobilize over $300 million in opportunity we have lost over time.
And
Mr. Speaker,
3 years down the road,
I have also not
still at 11%, and that should worry the country. That should worry as members who have pocket these monies. That
Uganda
actually
continues to
we
lose
are not
low tax revenue
yet
through
we are
illicit
nowhere
financial
near our target that we set. Therefore, Right Honourable Speaker, for us to start talking about revenue mobilization, we got to look at some of the incentives that do exist. I would like to also interest our colleagues that most of these incentives that we normally refer to
gaps in our tax laws
that facilitate investors are actually available for our local investors. Unfortunately, they do not have the knowledge.
It is said right now Africa loses annually over
the effort, more effort that needs to be put into raising awareness of our local investors and our local businesses,
and how much of this do you think occurs in this country?
And so I think the other aspect also
Lastly,
is that much as we expect so much
recently,
from URA,
the Minister of Finance
so
released
that they can do unless we actually invest in the URA itself. Because you can't expect to milk so much when you have actually not fed that cow. So I think as Parliament, we also need to interest ourselves, what is it that we need to invest in URA? Is it digitization?
Financial year.
Is it increasing our tax base? Do we have to invest more maybe on the productive sector?
That is revenue
so that when we are talking about their
exemptions are given out,
their low performance on this tax to GDP ratio, we are actually sure that we have put money where it is supposed to generate the revenue. In most cases, we only want to look at the revenue, but we fail to look at where this revenue should actually be coming from.
Investors, without qualifying whether there are benefits coming from those tax expenditures. For example, we have seen supermarkets close, big multinational companies in this country close after exploiting the tax benefits. So it's time this government is reviews and qualifies.
Because we are proceeding very well. Honorable Dakas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I probably want to start from the point of
they make on tax
the exemptions.
Tax expenditures, so that
Mr. Speaker,
knowing where the benefits of our policies can promote more revenue
evaluate these
we are advocates for
some I think the report highlights
that requires us to take
these exemptions cheat us. Some of these companies stay here for 10 years when they are applying, they take advantage of the government policy. But if you see what they do between the first year up to the 10th year, you see that there are gaps. I think it would be very important to evaluate periodically and assess these particular companies that we are giving exemptions. But relatedly is our own local investors.
Public account,
if our own local investors who give a lot when they supply to government in the works that they do or in the products that they produce, you find that government is very slow in paying them. So you find a company has supplied government for 1 year and they have not been paid. That way, we as government, we have both lost the tax, because if we had paid them the arrears, they would pay the tax. We've lost the tax, but also we have delayed them. So I think that would be important. The other is really the idea of diversification. The tax, there are few taxpayers in this country. The entities that are contributing are fewer. And if you look around, if you ask people who are in business, they tell you they are tired of the taxes. I think it's high time. At some point, I think this year, the speaker in this house actually suggested that we needed a robust discussion on revenue. When the way we are paying for our budget, if you look going backwards, we are not doing well. But we haven't really, I feel like we haven't really confronted the issue of revenue mobilization adequately. The budget processes are too fast that we don't deal with ways in which we should raise revenue. And unless we stop and evaluate that and assess our own ability to contribute, our ability to sustain our budgets will remain low. So I agree with the committee that we need to think about how Ugandans can contribute to their revenue. Apart from a few businesses, we are losing businesses. If you go downtown, you see people open, they rent. 3-6 months down the road, that business has closed. You go back, you look at the shops, you realize this one closed, this one closed. And mostly it's related to tax. And I think the committee is spot on to say we need to diversify. Finally, Mr. Speaker, even our low-hanging fruits that URA should use. For instance, our systems are very slow. You keep hearing us talking about system failures. The system is not working. Even when a taxpayer wants to pay, it's difficult for a taxpayer to pay. Up to now, even just acquiring a TIN number, you need a third party. If you go up country, these digital systems are not serving even those who want to pay. So I think making sure that those systems that we use, the digital platforms, are user-friendly. Putting a container downtown Kampala here in the effort of EFRIS has helped to create not only awareness, but actually to bring more people towards using that platform. So I agree with the committee, and thank you.
That is revenue foregone when exemptions are given out.
There are low performance on this tax.
Given ample time to the resource
we are actually
mobilization
sure that
company,
we have
but
put
the
money
problem is
where it
we
is
only look
supposed
at
to
the tax
generate
bills.
the revenue. In most cases,
Okay.
we only want
I've
to
never
look at
had
the
any
revenue,
other proposal
but we fail to
beyond,
look at
where
where
tax
this
bills.
revenue should
So,
actually be.
supposed
and,
I thank you very
investors
much.
without
I think
qualifying
really,
whether
indeed
there are
we have to
benefits
so much
coming
deeper
from those
in
tax
our
expenditures.
revenue.
For example, we have seen
mobilization
supermarkets
strategy. But
close,
also when we are
big
discussing
multinational
here,
companies
I think it is
discount
very, very
close
important
after exploiting the tax benefits.
we should
Anyway,
always
each time
finish
government
the tax
reviews
once
or
concentration.
amplifies
We look at proposals which we have rejected. And then we cost those proposals.
Thank you very
Then
much,
we pass
Mr.
a budget
Speaker.
minus.
I probably want
those
to start from the
every
point of
decision
sometimes I have seen
exemptions.
tax expenditures so that
Just
the
some tax
where
proposals
the
which
benefits
would have generated
of our
200
policies
billion or 100
promote
billion or
more
50 billion.
revenue.
But then
evaluate
continue and
these
pass the
advocates
budget,
for
the whole
Some,
figure.
I think the
Improve the
report
revenue
But we have
highlights
denied it a
that,
source of
requires us
financing.
to
So
these
where,
exemptions
how would
cheap
you
as
finance
well.
it?
Some of these companies
Okay.
stay here
I
for
think
10
that's
years.
where we shall
When they are
put,
applying,
a lot of emphasis.
they take advantage of
When
the government
chair,
policy.
the
But
honorable colleague
if you
has
see what they
directed me
do between the first year
I
up
think
to
some
the
of these
10th year,
errors
you see that there are gaps.
to critical
I think it
examine.
would
For
be
example, on page 24, recommendation Roman 2, you're saying management of URA should invest in voter education. Okay? Yes. I know we have voters here. and our voters are taxpayers. Yeah, but the content would be different. Okay. Yes, Honorable Kateshumba, and then last Honorable Babiko. I picked the colleagues to speak when he was opening debate.
Right, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the Chair for the report, and I have a few observations to add. The first one, Right Honorable Speaker, is the issue of tax areas. The Chair has informed us that there are many areas, some of which arise out of government commitments, but I would have expected a very strong recommendation, because part of the areas are as a result of government areas, money that is owed to businesses that have supplied government. So if you have done business with government and they have not paid you for 2 years, but you have issued an invoice for VAT, it becomes due and you have to pay URA. So what do we need to do? Because people are borrowing money to do business and to pay tax, but they are not paid. So we need a very strong recommendation to government with respect to areas, because it will rejuvenate our economy if people are paid, and that money will generate more money. Secondly, Right Honorable Speaker, my colleague has talked about the system. The current URA system is 16 years old. 2008, and that system can no longer hold the tax population for which it was intended to be. For example, Right Honorable Speaker, at the time that system was bought, URA was not collecting NTR on behalf of many other agencies. They have been added on, including university fees. So government needs to invest in URA to make sure that they have the latest technology that can be able to assist in revenue collection. Some of the areas you are talking about could be system assessments that are not yet verified. So we need a commitment from government to support URA to upgrade the system so that we have a system that can serve the current population and the current needs. Right Honorable Speaker, on the issue of NTR, over the years we have seen that when URA took over correction of NTR, the corrections doubled. And so I want to call upon government that if there is any other agency that is collecting fees or other forms of taxes, we need quickly transfer that responsibility to URA, including expanding the local government revenue collections to integrate it with URA so that they can be able to collect. Finally, Right Honorable Speaker, you've talked about amendments. I think we need to amend the PFMA. We start here discussing the budget framework paper way before even half the financial year starts to the end. But we are left with very little time to consider tax bills. And that stampede makes us make the mistake that you have talked about, Right Honorable Speaker. So we need to synchronize. If we are discussing the budget, the supply side, we must simultaneously look at the economic side, the income side, so that we make proposals which can boost the economy to be able to help us generate revenue in future. So that if we scrap down some of the measures, we do not find ourselves with a situation where expectations exceed the demand. Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Babiko.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. I support the recommendations of the committee. But Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, as people are talking about financing URA to help us to collect fairly adequate amount, I'm concerned about those who are paying taxes. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, small as our Germany is, the businesses that I knew when I was growing,
and assess
they have collapsed.
Companies that we are giving
many have died as a result of pressures
local investors
put on them in the course of collecting revenue or paying taxes. Therefore, Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, I am of the view that as we collect monies let us also do assessment. Let's sit with those who are paying taxes, listen from them, and make use of their views, because we have multiple taxes.
That would be important.
Multiple taxes from one point to the other. And because of that, we have narrowed the base of taxation, because the number of people who are paying taxes has reduced. So can we look at increasing the number of people who are paying taxes without killing their businesses? To Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, the issue of sensitization is very key, because not everybody who is doing business, who is paying tax, is educated. And we expect them to perfectly manage the systems, do remittances. And this makes them at times default. I have personally taken people to URA. I want to thank URA staff.
And evaluate that.
They are hospitable, they attend to their customers. But how many business people will get a help from individuals who are ready to take them to the headquarters? Therefore, I pray that they follow their programs of outreaches where they can talk to these people and educate them on what to do when doing their businesses. On the tax waivers, there is a lot of outcry of being selective, few people benefiting from the waivers. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, I pray that routinely Ministry of Finance brings report with clear justification on who is to be exempted and why, so that we can be able to disseminate. Thank you so much.
Even when a taxpayer wants to pay, it's difficult for a taxpayer to pay. Up to now, even just acquiring a TIN number, you need a third party. If you go up country, these digital systems are not serving even those who want to pay. So I think making sure that those systems that we use, the digital platforms, are user-friendly. Putting a container downtown Kampala here, in the effort of efforts, has helped to create not only awareness, but actually to bring more people towards using that platform. So I agree with the committee, and thank you.
Enterprises in the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Uganda Revenue Authority revenue account for the year ended 30th June 2023 be adopted. As the Revenue never had any other proposal. The eyes have yawned. We lack to extract the report and ensure it reaches the minister
whether they are benefits coming from those tax expenditures. For example, we have seen
Item 8, motion for adoption of the report of the Public Accounts Committee on Commissions, State Authorities and State Enterprises on the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Uganda Wildlife Authority for the financial year ended June 30th, 2023.
Pass the budget minus 10 minutes.
I want to start from the point of
thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
tax expenditures
But then
the whole figure.
Some of these companies stay here for 10 years. When they are applying,
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
policy.
So, Speaker and Honourable colleagues, I have already.
Honourable colleagues, let me first tell you this. This week, any reports of accountability which want to be handled by Thursday, we are adopting all of them. We are already behind the schedule as per requirement of PFMA, which gives us 6 months. So even now I'm trying to accommodate so that at least we can. I know we have voters here. All of them will be adopted so that and our voters are taxpayers will be processed because it's an action taken. Yeah, but the content will be different. Okay. So you're already behind the schedule, and then last I cannot afford to waste any more time on this. Chair, the colleagues
thank you very much.
Opening debate.
Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank
I
you,
want
Right
to
Honourable
thank
Speaker.
the Chair for the report.
So, Speaker and Honourable
And
colleagues, I have
a few
already laid on
observations
table the minutes in accordance with the
The
rules.
first one, Right Honourable
And
Speaker, is
this
the
is a report
issue
of
of
the
tax
committee.
areas.
with respect
The
to
chair
the
has
accounts of
informed us
Uganda
that there are
Wildlife
many
Authority for the
areas,
financial year ended
some of which
June
arise out of government
30th,
commitments.
2023.
But I would have
Mr. Speaker,
expected a very strong
colleagues,
recommendation, because
we have raised a number of
part of
observations
the
and attendant recommendations.
areas are as a
With
result
regard
of
to the observations,
government areas,
they start
money that
at
is
page
owed to
7
businesses
of
that
our
have
report.
supplied government.
And we
So
recommend,
if you have done business with government
with
and they have not
respect
paid
to
you
the
for 2 years,
unauthorized excess
but you have
expenditure,
issued an invoice
at page
for
8,
VAT, it becomes
that the
due and
committee
you have to
recommends
pay
the accounting
URA.
officer be cautioned against
So what do we need
flouting
to
the
do?
law
Because
on
people are
the
borrowing money
authorities'
to do
spending
business
patterns.
and pay tax, but they are not paid.
With regard,
So we need a very strong
Mr. Speaker, to
recommendation
the non-provision of
government
information on
with
gorilla
respect to
and
areas,
chimpanzee
because it
booking
will
and data
rejuvenate our
information
economy if people are
The
paid
committee made
and
observations at
that
page
money will
9
generate more money.
to 10
Secondly, Right Honorable Speaker,
and recommended
my
that
colleague
Uganda
has talked
Police
about
should
the system.
expedite the ongoing
The
investigations,
current URA system is 16
facilitate
years old,
appropriate action to be taken against
2008,
whoever is found
and that
culpable.
system can no longer
Background,
hold
Mr. Speaker,
the
is
tax
that there is an
population
ongoing forensic
for which it was
investigation
intended to be.
in
For
the affairs
example, Right
of
Honorable
GUA,
Speaker, the time that
as
system
well
was
as
bought,
police
URA was not
investigation
collecting
to
NTR on
unearth
behalf of many other agencies.
culpability.
They have been added on,
With
including
regard to
university
unaccounted for funds,
fees. So government needs to
yes,
invest
the committee makes
in URA to
observations
make sure that they have
page 11
the latest
and
technology
recommends
that
that
can be
UA
able
should
to
strengthen its internal
assist in
controls
revenue
to
collection.
prevent
Some of the
financial
areas
loss.
you are talking about could
The
be
committee also recommends
system
that the
assessments
unverified
that are not yet
accountability should form
verified.
part of
So we
part
need a commitment
and the
from
subject
government
of the
to support
ongoing
URA
forensic
to upgrade the system so that
investigation
we have a
audit.
system that can serve the current
There are
population and the current
unimplemented
needs. Right Honorable Speaker,
implementation of
on the issue of
approved
NTR,
budget.
over the years we have
Speaker and
seen
honourable
that when
colleagues,
URA took over
we
correction
do
of
a thorough
NTR,
analysis of the figures
the corrections
pages
doubled.
12
And
to
so I want to
30,
call upon government that if there is any other
and
agency that
we
is collecting fees
make observations
or other
on
forms of,
the performance of
you know,
internally generated
taxes,
revenue at page
we
13.
need quickly transfer that
We
responsibility
make,
to URA,
that is 13
including
to 14,
expanding the local government
and make
revenue collection
recommendations
to integrate it
page
with URA so
15
that they can be able to
with the
collect.
effect
Finally,
that one,
Right Honorable
the
Speaker, you
Minister
talked
of
about
Finance, Planning and Economic
amendments.
Development in consultation with
I
the
think we need to
authority,
amend the
will always
PFMA.
endeavor
We
to
start
set
here
realistic NTR
discussing the
targets.
budget framework paper
Two,
way
that
before
with realistic
even
NTR
the
targets in
after
place, the
financial year
government should
starts
stop extending
to the end.
budget support
But we are left
to
with
the
very
authority
time to
and
consider
encourage
tax
it to
bills.
reach a level of
And that stampede
self-sustenance.
makes us
Incrementally,
make the
the
mistake that you have
projection
talked
should
about.
be to
Right,
enable
Honorable
the
Speaker.
authority to provide
So we need
financial
to
contributions
synchronize. If we are
to the
discussing the
consolidated
budget,
fund,
the
just like
supply
other
side,
sectors.
we must
Number
simultaneously
three,
look
the
at the
committee
economic
recommends
side,
that
the income
two
side, so that we
laws
make
be
proposals
amended
which
to
can
bring
boost
them
the
in
economy
harmony
to be able to help us generate
and
revenue
achieve
in
the
future.
desired goal of
So
bringing
that
all
if we
government
scrap down
entities
some of the measures,
within the purview
we do not
of the
find
Public
ourselves
Finance
with a
Management
situation where
Act
expectations exceed
And
the
four,
demand.
that the committee
Thank you very
recommends
much,
that
Right
the
Honourable
authority
Thank
be
you,
given a
Honourable
vote
Babiko.
status to increase its transparency. With
Thank you
regard
so
to
much,
performance
Right
of
Honourable
government
Speaker.
warrants, Mr. Speaker and Honourable
I
colleagues,
support the
we make an
recommendations
analysis
of the
and
committee.
observations at page
But Right Honourable Speaker and
15,
colleagues, as
pages
people are
15
talking
to 16.
about financing
Also,
URA
with regard to utilization
help
of
us
receipts.
to collect
Observations
fairly
at
adequate
page
amount.
16 to 17.
I'm concerned
and we
about
make
those who are
recommendations as
paying
follows. That
taxes.
who should comply with section
Right Honourable
67(3)
Speaker and
of the Uganda
colleagues.
Wildlife Act,
Small as
which
a Jumani
requires
is,
that an entity spends
the businesses that I knew when I was
that an entity
growing,
spends within
they have
the limit
collapsed.
of its approved budget.
Many have died as a result of
Supplementary
pressures
local investors.
put on them in the course of collecting revenue or paying taxes.
as required by
Therefore,
law.
Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, I am of the view that as we collect monies, let us also do assessment. Let's sit with those who are paying taxes, listen from them, and make use of their
that the accounting office
views.
should ensure that
Because
effort-
we have multiple
that effort is
taxes,
always made to identify
multiple taxes from one point to the other.
to the implementation
And because of that, we have narrowed the base of taxation, because
an entity
the number of people who are paying
payroll
taxes has reduced. So can we look at increasing the number of people who are paying taxes without killing their businesses? To Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, the issue of sensitization is very key, because not everybody who is doing business, who is paying tax, is educated, and we expect them to perfectly manage the systems, do remittances, and this makes them at times default. I have personally taken people to URA. I want to thank URA staff. They are hospitable, they attend to their customers. But how many business people will get a help from individuals who are ready to take them to the headquarters? Therefore, I pray that they follow their programs of outreaches where they can talk to these people and educate them on what to do.
Budget utilization. On review of the entity's staff establishment, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, we make observations at pages 22 to 23 and recommend one, that UA should improve on its staff attraction and retention policy in order to address the challenges of staffing gaps, and 2, that UA should expedite the recruitment processes following government's clearance of its rationalization status. On delayed reevaluation of the entity's assets, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, we make observations at page 24 and recommend that the reevaluation should be done immediately to ascertain the actual value of the authority's assets. On accumulation of payables, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, we do make an analysis and observe at page 25 and recommend that UA management should always make prompt payments to clear the outstanding payables as per UA's Financial Procedures Manual 2016, and 2, that accountability for the accumulated payables be included in areas for verification under the ongoing forensic audit. On overdue receivables, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, the committee makes observations at page 26 and recommends 1, that UA management should develop a debt recovery policy concerning concessions within 6 months from the date of adoption of this report. 2, that the entity should strengthen their debt collection efforts to recover outstanding concessions and receivables. And finally, 3, that UA should terminate agreements or contracts with non-compliant concessionaires. On delayed disbursement and accountability of revenue share to local governments, Mr. Speaker, we make observations at page 27 to 28 and make the following recommendations. At page 28, that UA should periodically sensitize and support the beneficiary communities in developing proposals in line with the set criteria so as to benefit from the grant and continue enforcing accountability in accordance with the law. Number 2, that accounting officers of local governments should submit their accountabilities in a timely manner so as to facilitate the smooth transfer and utilization of the shared revenue. With regard to failure to integrate other UA systems to the main accounting system, which we identified, Mr. Speaker, to be a source of fraud, we do make observations at page 30.
I just built the most amazing workflow on Monday.com.
You build your own workflow? Why? There are a bunch of amazing...
and rollout of the system to all protected areas. And 2, that the board and management should review the authority's ICT strategic plan and prioritize the information systems. Delayed completion of the reservation, booking, payment, and park access systems, Mr. Speaker. We make observations at page 31 and recommend 1, that UA Contracts Committee should ensure that all contracts are executed within the specified time frame. 2, that UA should expeditiously install infrastructure that adequately supports an implementation of the reservation, booking, payment, and park access system. Finally, that MFI document solution should be blacklisted from doing any business with any government establishment for at least 10 years from the date of adoption of this report. On management of concessions, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, outstanding concession receivables, we make observations at pages 32 to 33 and recommend as follows. 1, that UWA management expedites recovery of outstanding receivables, and 2, that UWA develops a comprehensive framework or policy on receivables management. On underdeveloped concession sites in
guinea
the protected
pig farming,
areas,
guinea pig care,
we
guinea pig
at
meat
page
processing.
33 and recommend at page
Guinea
34,
pig farming
Mr.
and
Speaker,
meat processing have
that
gained
the-
increasing
that
attention
UWA
in
should
recent
review
years.
existing concession agreements in view of its implementation. 2, that concessions should be given a time limit to work in phases, and UWA reports to Parliament on the
Guinea
performance
pigs have
of the
served us
concessions
as cuddly
every
pets,
6
but
months
until now, their
from the
potential
date
for
of
converting
adoption of
weed
this
into
report.
fertilizer is a talent
3,
that has
that
been
failure by
largely
the
overlooked.
concessionaires to
John
implement the
Gargan, a
concessions by
biodynamic
end
farmer from
of
North
financial year
Queensland, is one of the first
2023-24
people to use rodent
should
workers
have
on
their
his farm.
contracts revoked and advertised. On management of confiscated items from the endangered species, Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues, and this is a very, very dicey and sensitive matter. We make our observations at page 35 and make our recommendations at the same page that UWA should strengthen measures geared towards mitigating poaching practices and the endangered species. Number 2, we concur with the Auditor General that UWA should engage with relevant stakeholders with a view to addressing the matter. Mr. Speaker, we are cognizant of our international obligations and the sensitivity of this matter, and somebody reading the entire report will see where we are coming from in arriving at the structuring of this recommendation. With regard to the review of UWA's litigation portfolio, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, we make 3 observations at page 36, and we make our recommendation that UWA should conduct a thorough risk assessment on its litigation portfolio to guide its decision in pursuit of justice. And 2, that all agencies of government that are susceptible to high litigation incidents should always compile case status reports and prosecution reports to inform future engagements in court processes. Unimplemented procurements, Mr. Speaker, are page 36. We make our observations at page 37 and recommend at page 37 as follows. That the accounting officer should adhere to the procurement laws, plans and timelines during the procurement.
Hello guys, welcome back to my
channel.
Investigations
welcome be undertaken to confirm a
Happy to see you once again.
And or diversion of funds.
In today's video, we're talking about the guinea pig.
Part of the ongoing forensic
guinea pig farming, one of the best and
the accounting officer should prioritize addressing procurement
is rare in Nigeria,
such as recruitment.
So this is an addition to our farm,
number of procurement officers,
to our farm animals.
And conducting due diligence.
So I'll be
in the capacity
giving you a brief
of contractors.
Information
Other
about
matters,
the guinea pig.
Mr. Speaker, that came to the attention
guinea
of
pig,
the committee and were
they are wonderful animals.
Included
a small rodent animal that one can
page
farm.
37,
and
failure to conduct due diligence on MFI document solutions as a software developer leading to loss of public funds. Mr. Speaker, the committee observed that the legal department of UWA overlooked and neither advertised management on the board to ensure that due diligence as an integral part of legality was observed. The failure by UWA Legal Department and the Directorate of Tourism to have due diligence report as part of the ultimately led to loss of taxpayers' money amounting to Uganda shillings 180 million, including arbitration costs. The committee faults the 2 departments that were represented on the UWA Contracts Committee for failing to provide technical guidance to the committee to consider due diligence as an integral part of the contract process leading to procurement of a company that specializes in hardware to provide software development and implementation. We recommend, therefore, that both the Director Legal Services and Director Tourism be held personally liable for the Uganda shillings 180 million loss caused by their negligence in providing the technical guidance in the procurement of MFI Solutions as a software development company. 2, that due diligence is a fundamental check that UWA should take seriously during selection of service providers to provide implementation, disruptions and loss of public funds. Procurement, to prevent, procurement of business accounting central system, Uganda shillings 180 million. Our observation is captured at page 40, and we recommend that management should deploy tight financial systems and conduct periodic reviews, updates and upgrades to ensure that they are free from manipulation and mutilation. UWA should procure only user-friendly systems, time-tested and efficient systems to avoid delays in processing services. Mr. Speaker, UWA should embed the annual operating plan for systems in a single cost computation to avoid recurring payments that make the acquisition, operation and management of the system costly. Award of contract to non-VAT registered company. We made the observation at page 40 and at 40 to 41 and recommend that UWA should recover the Uganda shilling 64,396,351 and remit the same to Uganda Revenue Authority as a VAT payable. The committee recommends that UWA and all agencies of government involved in procurements should observe due diligence in their contractual obligations and transactions before engaging suppliers to avoid retrospective recovery of funds from stakeholders. With regard to repairs of motor vehicles and equipment, 300 million wheel loader wheel loader of 380 million. The committee makes observations at pages 41 to 42 and recommends that the matter be referred to the forensic audit, which is ongoing. Procurement of the second-hand scanner at Kasenyi. The committee makes the observations at page 42 and recommends that UWA should uphold the procurement standard of new and long-lasting equipment. Indeed, this was after finding that actually the vehicle procured was not the old model as complained by the whistleblower. Procurement of a flatbed self-loader vehicle, Mr. Speaker. We make observations at page 43 and recommend that UWA should follow the procurement procedures in the award of its contracts for supply of goods and services. UWA should also consider awarding contracts to companies registered and operating in Uganda. Procurement of firefighting equipment, 1.2 billion. The committee observes that the delay by UWA to clear payment for the goods and services provided may lead to interest payable and affect the costs of supplies in the medium time. We recommend, therefore, that UWA should always clear its payment for goods and services promptly to avoid any further expenditures arising from interest or related charges on the supplies procured. On payment of over 300 million for water connection to Lake Mburo, we make observations and recommendations at pages 44 to 45 that management of invasive species in the National Parks and Conservation Area, just a minute, pardon me, Mr. Speaker, we recommend that the query be dropped because it was satisfactorily explained. On management of invasive species in the national parks and conservation areas, Mr. Speaker, we make observations and recommend that this query still be dropped, having been satisfactorily explained. On questionable utilization of the donations of 100,000 USD to game rangers, the committee recommends that the ongoing forensic audit, which is being conducted, establishes the rightful beneficiaries of the donation, and therefore the matter be handled in that particular recommendation, in that particular audit. On poor handling of park access fees collected through mobile Airtel money, Mr. Speaker, we make observations that the particular matter is under forensic investigation, which was directed by the Speaker of Parliament, and we recommend that an expeditious investigation be carried out and concluded. In conclusion, therefore, Mr. Speaker, we believe that by strengthening the internal controls and deployment of adequate and watertight integrated reservations, booking and financial management systems, WUA can ably avert a repeat of the similar fraud in future. With that, Mr. Speaker, permit me to move that the report of the committee be adopted. I beg to move. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Debate begins now. Honorable Bish, Honorable Kia, Honorable Katsoro, Honorable Malmoy, Honorable Workers. No, these are not issues of rope and hook.
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker.
Yeah.
I would like to thank the committee for the report. Although I have a few matters to raise here, because the recommendations, some of the recommendations which have been attached to the observations may be very weak. I will give an example. The committee finds that there is unauthorized expenditure by the authority. Unauthorized expenditure would generally mean that there is fraud, because someone spends without being authorized. So if an entity like Uganda Wildlife Authority does not have the authorization mandate or spends without being authorized, some staff spend without being authorized, I would expect the committee to recommend recovery of some of those monies which have been spent without authorization. Right Honourable Speaker, in addition to that, the committee seems to have given up on its work, and everything is, they are saying it should be referred to the forensic audit that is taking place. As a committee, I thought they would have their own position on each of the matters that the Auditor General has raised, and where they think the forensic audit should be conducted, they should recommend so. But when the committee says this is being handled by the forensic audit, this is being handled by the forensic audit, as a parliament, I think we will have had a raw deal in this matter. Lastly, Right Honourable Speaker, the issue of the frauds in the permits was all over the media, and everyone knows what is happening in Uganda Wildlife Authority, courtesy of the media. There is widespread information about this matter, and although the committee has said the matter is the forensic audit is being conducted, there is a need for expedition, because issues involving fraud and misappropriation of funds require urgent attention. But most importantly, Right Honourable Speaker, it is very key, and I support the committee on the issue of revenue correction being put under the consolidated account. Because these entities which are correcting money and spending at source, there's a lot of misappropriation happening, and therefore that matter, and maybe one of the MPs should bring a bill to ensure that these entities which are correcting money and spending at source should be abolished. Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Kia, 3 minutes maximum each.
Thank you, Right. Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Under the observation, I thank the committee for the report. Under the observation of utilization of UWA receipts, the report indicates that UWA spent over 4.7 billion in excess of their budget. And the reason that is given is because there was an outstanding amount on VAT that UWA wanted to pay, but it also indicated that there was an underdeclaration of payee that was discovered, and also a 720 million amount of underdeclaration of income tax. I don't know how this income tax is imposed on UA, but for those of us who use the northern route to West Nile, even when Karuma Bridge was opened, because the road was so bad, a lot of us opt to use the route through the park in UA. And personally, I've been paying the amount just to go through UA to save my back. But the issue here highlights the issue that many businesses are struggling with. If a government agency like UA is failing to pay their payee, what about the businesses out there? If a government agency like UA is underdeclaring incomes, it points to the report that we've just finished on URA. The same businesses are being taxed, and the pressure is put under those businesses. Therefore, there's an issue with the way that they're paying their payee and the tax. So I thought that this is an important point. If government themselves is failing to pay payee for their workers, what about the business people out there? Thank you, Right Honorable
Thank
Speaker.
you, Honorable Koryang. And Honorable Kasoro. Osoro.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Let me also thank the committee for this good report. And I want to address my concern to the issue of the conflict in the guidelines between the requirement that the local governments should submit proposals and thereafter account to Uganda Wildlife Authority as a requirement for disbursement of the next funds. And yet, this is delaying the process of disbursement of funds for the revenue sharing. I come from a local government that hosts Kidepo National Game Park, and the committee has clearly observed that there is delayed disbursement. There is a project that has actually stayed for 2-3 years before being implemented. And this is owing to the fact that there is conflict between the guidelines that OWA submits to the local government and the committee, that this project should go through the community procurement process, and yet the law on procurement requires that the district contracts committees should be the ones that should be actually awarding contracts in the local government. So somehow when the committee goes down to look at the observations, they state clearly that the requirement for the local governments to account to OWA is in contravention with the PFMA Act. But they become shy in the recommendations to state clearly what should be the recommendation that should be put forward to cure that inconsistency. I expected that the committee probably would mention and strengthen the point that going forward, then the local government should use the law that is provided instead of looking at the guidelines that.
Well, that's 3 minutes. Conclude.
Thank you. I wanted to raise a second issue.
I know if he said
the staffing gaps in relation to problem animals.
No, I had said we conclude, so let's go Soro if it's another issue.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I want to thank the committee for the wonderful report. But Right Honorable Speaker, we have a problem of domestic revenue. When you reach in countries like Kenya, when tourists come to Uganda, they spend very few days. They go to Kenya and Tanzania. And that at times is brought by the poor services that are got in the game parks and wherever. Whenever you are entering, they don't allow you to go with it. All consumable products, they leave them out. But when you reach inside, the services are wanting. That makes us lose a lot of domestic revenue that would have helped this government. So I would like also UWA to make sure we don't lose any money as other countries like Kenya and Tanzania do. And also look at a subsidized price for the hotels, because hotels in Uganda are very expensive compared to those of Kenya and Tanzania. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Yakatonda.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the committee for the watertight report. Being that I'm a member of the Committee on Trade, I think the issues are representative of the situation. Right Honorable Speaker and members, tourism is one of the 4 key activities that the country is settling for. After industrialization, agro-processing, digitalization, ICT, then tourism. And we're envisaging that we should move from $50 million and then go to $500. But you find that one, it is one of the underfunded entities. And I think we need real style up, because if you are saying we want to move from this amount to this, we should actually look at these core areas. But then relatedly, Parliament came up with a law on negotiation among the workers called the Public Service Negotiating and Consultative Machinery of 2008. But we find that empowerment of workers is wanting in most respects, Right Honorable Speaker. We need to come up with the consultative committees, including in the governments and these agencies. So it's not actually there. So when they talk of retention of staff being a challenge, it is very true, because we have not actually exploited these laws. Because this arises out of the Constitution under Article 40, Clause 3, where we talk of collective bargaining. But you go to institutions, you find that there is no collective bargaining. We don't talk about policy issues. We're not actually talking about rewards. Human social development policies are wanting. So, Right Honorable Speaker, I wish we could actually ensure that we look at these areas. This would actually help us grow, and even grow the agencies and then the economy. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Bangura. Followed by Honorable Sechanzi.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, join colleagues to thank the chair and members for a good report. And I want to address myself to NTR. Right Honorable Speaker, NTR, now in many entities, the collection is a preserve of Uganda Revenue Authority. And how I wish the committee had strongly recommended that at the gates of the parks and other areas of Hua, we put booths, or we put up collection points like it has happened in the universities and hospitals, such that we can boost up the collection of NTR. NTR that is collected and spent at the source is giving us a leakage, as highlighted even by Honorable Katesh in the first report that we discussed. When URA took over, the amounts doubled. So that should be considered, and it may help us. Then number 2, on implementation of outputs. Right Honorable Speaker, it is only through the outputs that you can feel service delivery. Now, when the entity does not deliver in implementation of some of the outputs, it means it falls short, and yet resources are warranted and even made available for some of those outputs that are supposed to be implemented. So in that case, I would have expected the committee to strongly recommend that entities that cannot absorb all the funds in relation to the outputs that are expected, their budgets be scaled down, because they are depriving other entities of money that would have been put in better use, considering that we have budget cuts that are at times coming across because of the scarcity of the resources. Right Honorable Speaker, at the airport, which is one of our main entry point of tourists, many times when we move out...
Honorable Nyanzi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my attention is drawn to the utilization of the funds. And I will very quickly also talk
Just let me make it very easy. Honorable colleagues, whenever we come here, you waste my 2 hours in arguments, okay? Here, listen. And yet I come having very clear agenda and business conduct. Please, when I go on such issues, allow me to proceed without interruption. Just sorry, Honorable Nyanzi.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the committee for the report, but the issue I was raising is to do with the unlawful utilization of the funds. And I noticed that the committee was a little lenient. The Honorable Bish has talked about it, but I want Mr. Speaker to draw the attention of the honorable members to, for example, on page 11, where you have 462 millions unaccounted for. Mr. Speaker, this looks like maybe small money, but this is big, because else outside you find Ugandans languishing in jails over small issues like goats, chicken, and what. So this is very important, that much as this amount is not accounted for, the committee said let it be part of the audit. I'm also concerned that some audit reports are never followed to conclusion, honorable members. It's very, very dangerous, because a report may come out and no action is taken. I would implore the committee perhaps to add on that where culpability is established, appropriate action is taken, but not just saying that this should be should form part of the audit. This is the same issue, Mr. Speaker, where the committee established poor handling of park access fees, and also the $100,000. Still, the committee is lenient. Let this be part of the audit. I'm more concerned with the outcomes and the action taken after the audit report than just the mere write-up. I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Gori, followed by Honorable Kisembo.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I'm impressed with the committee pinpointing the issue related with concessions. What I would request the committee to consider, if these concessions, because concessions may be used for speculation, but more importantly, concessions may be used to deny others who would want to invest in areas which are profitable. So we should make sure concessions which are there must be utilized. If they are not utilized, give opportunity for other people to invest so that we can reap from the tourism. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Noel Nixembo, Honorable Max, Honorable Soru, Honorable Tima.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. I want to thank the committee chairperson and members for the comprehensive report. My attention has been drawn to the gorilla and chimpanzee tracking, where the correctness of the revenue and from this valuable resource cannot be confirmed, and the suspected fraud there too. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to support the strong recommendation of the committee, and to add that the ongoing investigation should be expeditiously handled, and those found culpable should really be brought to book. But I also want to add that UA and the Uganda Revenue Authority need to tighten seriously the monitoring system for our revenue, because we know that tourism is a very important resource and source of revenue for our country. I also want to add that the Ministry of Tourism needs to up the game in as far as marketing of this valuable resource is concerned. Like my other colleagues have alluded to, when we see in the region, Uganda has a higher population of gorillas and chimpanzees, but we don't get the corresponding revenue compared with other partner states in the region. And there are issues of infrastructure that are not handled properly, and also the marketing bit of it. So I want to thank the committee for the report, and I think the ministry needs to do a little more to improve on how we are tracking revenue from this sector. I thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Max Kuchai.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to thank the committee for a very good report. Generally speaking, the recommendations that have come out of the analysis are actually sound and robust. Specifically, Mr. Speaker, I want to talk about accumulation of payables. Mr. Speaker, arrears tend to arise largely because of the fiscal discipline. And here we have observed that over time, OWA has succeeded in knocking down the amounts payable up to the tune of 546 million, down from about 957. To me, Mr. Speaker, the recommendation of ensuring that the accounting officer of OWA ensures that the amounts not yet verified are actually verified and prioritized in the subsequent budget over the medium term is a good recommendation. And therefore, I concur with the chairperson of the committee that we need to instill discipline in our accounting officer, particularly that of OWA, and ensure that we actually do not accumulate the arrears anymore. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Soru.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I want to thank my chair for presenting that nice report. However, listening to almost all the reports from the one that was presented by Honorable Chivumbi, Honorable Namuga, now my other Honorable here, almost money is being used but not accounted for. All money is being diverted without anybody following. I'm wondering, as Parliament, what we're going to do about it. Because in almost all the PAC reports, you find money is being used without the signatures of the authorities. Now, Right Honorable Speaker, it is very difficult to debate a report where every time PAC is presenting and we're having issues with money being used without being accounted. Second, Right Honorable Speaker, I want to draw your attention to review of entity staff establishment. UWA has a staff gap about 1,187. That's negatively affecting the capacity of this entity to deliver its mandate. And they also know that UWA is having challenges with attracting staffs, especially from a distant conservation areas. And now I want to agree with the committee position that UWA should improve its staff attraction and also retention policy. I want to agree with that position of the committee because I'm in the Committee of Trade, but we see it's normally in every meeting that we have with UWA, they are bringing this up. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Tima.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I thank the chair and the committee for good report. Right Honorable Speaker, I draw our attention to the point of lack of internal control system with this entity, UWA. Right Honorable Speaker, an entity or an organization without internal control system poses so many dangers. That's why these areas of collecting money from source or spending from source, unaccounted monies by the entity, funds budgeted, not utilized well or diverted. Right Honorable Speaker, lack of internal control system gives an opportunity for an entity not to use so many necessary documents that would allow this organization to control its funds and resource utilization. I therefore agree with the committee by recommending forensic audit, but my concern is, Right Honorable Speaker, which firm is going to conduct this forensic audit and when shall the report come back to Parliament? Because many times we recommend, we pass resolutions like this, it never comes back to Parliament and it ends like that. So this is a very serious concern that a big entity like UWA has no internal control system. Thank you very much. I submit.
Thank you. Now, honorable colleagues, you see, the difference with this one is that there is an ongoing forensic audit. So any issues would go to that. But I had cautioned you earlier that forensic audits cost a lot of money. So when you order forensic audit, that same institution which is supposed to be audited is the one to provide the money. And they say they don't have the money in the budget. Okay? Yeah, so when you find they don't have money, the Auditor General submits a bill to the entity and says, I need 1.5 billion for a forensic audit. Now, will I suppress other items? I avail money to catch me? So I think going forward, in future, maybe when we are budgeting, we should always project, and we project that in a financial year we shall have like 10 forensic audits, and we budget for them at the Auditor General, so that we don't again expect him to go to the same entities. I saw some of them. Okay? Honorable Soke?
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. The district money representative for Madiokolo asked a very pertinent question. She's observing that the procurement at district level is tampered with and UWA wants to use its own. I want to guide that at district level, we follow the government's guidelines, rules, and regulations. So in the Local Government Act, there is supposed to be a district procurement committee. Any monies that come, be it USMID, be it LEX, Local Government Economic Growth, we use the district procurement committee. So there shouldn't be an objection. That's what the districts should use. And someone has just talked about the revenue of tracking gorillas being mismanaged. We introduced a system, and this system is scientific. The integrated revenue administration systems. This doesn't allow anybody to collect and put in the pocket. So please, when we discuss things, go and help in the districts. Otherwise, the cows are already aware. They meet every 3 months. We call them and we emphasize this. Maybe what I can do, Right Honorable Speaker, we can't get tired of advising. I compel the Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Local Government to issue another stringent circular so that rules can be followed. Thank you.
Thank you. These are also clearly straightforward issues. I now put the question that...
With your permission, Right Honorable Speaker, first of all, I want to thank colleagues for the observations made, but I just need to put a few things in context. Number one, for those colleagues that are concerned about the forensic audit, because there was an alarm, the minister ordered a forensic audit, Minister of Tourism. However, we were not sure that the minister's report would be submitted to Parliament, and yet we were investigating the same issues. And that's how the Speaker of this House got involved and ordered another forensic audit. In effect, it's going to be the same audit, but we expect to receive a report in Parliament to allay the fears of colleagues. And that means, therefore, once an audit forensic is conducted, it will come here and we shall process it as Parliament. That's point number one. Number two, Mr. Speaker. With regard to those colleagues that are concerned that we kept referring to forensic. A forensic audit is a detailed audit. It shows who did what, other than making a blanket observation and a blanket recommendation. We want to know who is culpable for doing what. After all, the audit was already going on. To my honorable colleague, Honorable Ndiom Jenyi, otherwise known as Bish, the recommendation of recover should not be uniform and standardized. You're not talking about somebody who stole money and put it in his pocket. You're talking about somebody who did not follow a procedure, but used the money for an entity's service. It was put to service. You're only saying you did not follow this, and because the PFMA requires that you do this, we are recommending that you do this. This is different from fraud. In that particular issue, Honorable Ndiomjenyi, the committee did not establish fraud. And where we established that money was lost, that's where we recommended recovery. Reference, the other one, Mr. Speaker, I also wanted to clarify, whose money does not go to the consolidated fund. So you would not be talking about money that was not remitted to the consolidated fund. UA, by law, which we made, uses, utilizes, and spends its money with the approval of its board. Now, some of the issues that are being raised cross from accountability to policy, which is in effect another committee on the sector. Finally, Right Honorable Speaker, on the issue of conflict of laws, including procurement laws, which the Honorable Rusoke has been talking about, the issue that was raised as a pertinent, one, whereas UA insisted that we must first receive accountability before we release the next batch, the local governments were saying we do the accountability in accordance with the PFMA. We are not accountable to you. In other words, do not treat this as a donation to us. It is money we are entitled to by law. So that's the conflict of laws that we were talking about, and we believe that the recommendation we made is appropriate. Oh, I think I had forgotten something on concessions. Colleagues, if you interest yourselves in reading the entire background in the report, before the observations, through the observations to the recommendation, the concessionaires had a legitimate defense. That, you know, I signed a contract with you, the concession, in the year 2021. Through 21, almost to 23, I was not doing business. We were in COVID. So we need to revise. There are those that we singled out, which were lame, and we made recommendations that are specific. So we did agree that those that abuse, I think Honorable Clay, those that abuse the concessions to be withdrawn, and we have made the recommendation which we would invite you to find pleasure in passing. I think, Right Honorable Speaker, those were the issues that were arising from the interventions of the House. I thank you.
Thank you. I now put the question that the report of the Public Accounts Committee on Commission, Statutory Authorities and State Enterprises, and the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Uganda Wildlife Authority for the year ended 30th June 2023 be adopted. Those in favor say aye to the content A. The ayes have it. Clerk, extract the report and please give it to the Minister. We expect a Treasury Memorandum as required by the PFMA. House adjourned to tomorrow at 2 p.m.